Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net, also carrikerchronicles.com. It's where all your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true, ladies and gentlemen. Full disclosure, I promised myself that no matter what happened, I wasn't going to get upset with the result of this game. Whether we won, whether we lost, I didn't figure anybody would get blown out. I promised myself I wasn't going to get upset. If you follow me on social media, all day long I was having fun. I was like, you got to embrace the rivalry. You got to have fun. Of course I talked about Iowa has bad corn, win, lose, or draw. You got to have fun with it. And even throughout the game, I took a screenshot of me smiling when we were up. Things I never do. And the reason I did that was I was like, no matter what happened, I wasn't going to be upset and I wasn't going to be mad. But then we lose the way that we lose. And it's the only way you cannot be upset and mad is if you just don't give a crap. All right. If you're like me and you believe the better team didn't win, but the more disciplined team did, hit the like button. All right, let's go through the game. Before the game, police officers are not allowing Nebraska's players to stand on the logo and do their pregame prayer that they typically do before the games. So what happened is Nebraska held its usual pregame huddle in one end zone after law enforcement basically wouldn't let them on the midfield logo to do what they normally do. Why this has become a thing is beyond me. All right. Now, Caleb Johnson, when he runs for 100 yards, Iowa is 7-1 on the season. All right, he's done it 8 times. Iowa 7-1 on the season. By the way, he ran for 45 yards today. Iowa quarterback Jackson Stratton had never thrown for 100 yards in a game. 76 in his first start versus Maryland. I believe he only had 73 today. All right, only 2 starts, today being the second, and 20 total career passing attempts before tonight even started. And Iowa ran the ball 57 times in his first start versus Maryland. Now, when you look at Dylan Raiola, all right, when we started out winning a lot more games in the first month of the season than we were losing, you look at he had a 9-3 passing touchdown to interception ratio. When we went on the 4-game skid, all of a sudden it was 2 passing touchdowns to 7 INTs. And I'm not putting all this on Dylan, just stats, okay, that I found interesting. But then all of a sudden against Wisconsin, there were no interceptions. All right, and Dylan, throughout the year as a whole, he's done some good things. He's a young kid. He's growing. Just something I thought was interesting. Did you know? Okay, let's move on. The fact of the matter is at one point tonight, Nebraska had more than twice as many plays they ran, more than twice as many total yards, a 2-to-1 time of possession advantage at one point. And what I'm looking at right now, Nebraska had 267 yards of total offense. Iowa had 51. So that's way more than the 2-to-1 I was just alluding to. But I'm putting the cart before the horse. All right, let's light this candle. All right, Nebraska and Iowa have played every single year since Black Friday. All right, since 2011. I said this is going to be a bloodbath in the trenches tonight, especially with the cold weather. Caleb Johnson is the leading rusher in the Big Ten, and second best back, statistically speaking, in the entire country, only behind Ashton Jeanty. All right, the quarterback matchup is a matchup of a 5-star quarterback in Dylan Raiola versus a walk-on in Jackson Stratton for Iowa, who originally came from Colorado State, walked on campus here. But here's what's funny. Even though Jackson Stratton is a sophomore, Dylan Raiola is a true freshman, 19 years old. Dylan actually this was his 12th start tonight, only Jackson Stratton's second start. It was just an interesting matchup of a 5-star versus a walk-on versus a guy who was older, but a guy who actually had more starts. Just a little bit intriguing to me. All right, and last week versus Wisconsin, as I mentioned earlier, was the first time Raiola hadn't thrown a pick in a game since September. All right, I should note, I thought it was interesting, Matt Rhule was rocking his typical shorts as he was making his pregame laps around the field despite the cold weather. Now, let's see where I'm at here. Iowa's returner, all right, to open the game. They've always got these really good returners. They always run the ball really well, really good at defense, really good at special teams, don't beat themselves, and they really always have these really good returners. All right, 3 straight games coming into tonight. He'd had 100-plus yards when you combine punt and kick returns in a game. That's the first time that had happened. All right, Caden Wetchen is his name in over 50 years. 3 straight games, over 100-plus return yards, punt and kick return yards total for 3 straight games. Hadn't happened in over 50 years. Now the Hawkeyes' first possession All right, they rushed the ball twice, -1 yard. The black shirts are all over the place. Ultimately, a 3-and-out. Great start for the defense. I wrote Dylan Raiola. All right, the only true freshman quarterback in the Big Ten to start every game so far this year. Now, Nebraska's captains coming into the contest or at the coin flip tonight were Elliott Brown, Emmett Johnson, MJ Sherman, Deshaun Singleton. The Huskers' first drive, 10 plays, 64 yards, a big third down conversion early on, ends with a John Hull field goal. That was his 9th consecutive made field goal in recent games up to that point. Anyways, all right, I wrote the good guys 3, other guys 0. All right, tonight's game is the coldest game at Kinnick Stadium in the 20 degrees since 2013 versus Michigan when it was 13 degrees. The Hawkeyes' second drive, another 3-and-out. So far, Iowa, 6 plays for 6 yards. They've thrown the ball 3 times for 8 yards and rushed the ball 3 times for -2 yards. Tony White, I was watching the defense, watching what he was calling, watching what they were doing schematically. Tony White is selling out, blitzing the house with 0 man coverage. So 0 safeties deep on not every single play, but a majority of these plays. 0 safeties deep with 0 man coverage on the back end. He's daring Iowa's quarterback Jackson Stratton to beat us, and I love it so far. The Huskers' second drive, all right, I should mention that Dylan Raiola was having some issues with his helmet. I couldn't tell. It seemed like it was maybe the communication system, but I couldn't tell for sure. The Huskers' second drive, 3-and-out. Dylan Raiola sacked on third down. All right, 3 of 4 drives by both teams so far. 3 of those 4 drives have been 3-and-outs with 1 drive by the Huskers resulting in a field goal. The first 10 drives of the game between the 2 teams, there was 9 punts and the 1 field goal. That was it. All right, Iowa returner returns the ball 25 yards. Kane Wedgton returns the ball 25 yards out to the Hawkeyes' 42-yard line. The black shirts stopped Caleb Johnson on 3rd and 1. All right, Kinnick Stadium started booing Kirk Ferentz because they wanted him to go for it on 4th down, but that's not what he does. He's not going to beat himself. Iowa's not going to beat themselves. They're not going to have a bunch of penalties. They're not going to have a bunch of turnovers. They're not going to push the panic button. You could argue they're not aggressive. I would argue they win more games than they should based on the talent they have because they don't beat themselves. All right, let's get back to where I was. I wrote, but that's not Kirk Ferentz's style. That's what I wrote here. All right. Now, Nebraska's next drive, a first down, but Raiola was sacked again, which led to another punt. The Hawkeyes' next drive, another 3-and-out. That's 4 straight 3-and-outs to start the game for Iowa, plus 6 3-and-outs of the first 8 drives. So of the first 8 drives between the 2 teams, there were 6 3-and-outs between Nebraska and Iowa. Not just punts, but 3-and-outs. All right. So far, Caleb Johnson has 5 carries for 1 rushing yard. I think I mentioned earlier, he ended up with 45 rush yards on the night, so didn't even come close to the 100 he normally gets. The Huskers' next drive, Raiola scrambled on 3rd down and dove for the first down. I'm happy to see him fighting for yards instead of sliding as he did versus USC short of the marker. Happy to see him fighting for yards and fighting to get first downs again. All right. Even though when he extended the ball, he was short, I said, I can live with that. I can live with the effort. All right, Huskers ended up punting. Couple of quick notes. Greg Sharp not calling the game tonight. Hopefully he's okay. As most of you know, he's battling cancer. So continued prayers for Greg Sharp as well. All right, and then 11 years ago, all right, this is actually pretty cool. 11 years ago, Husker defensive lineman Dylan Parrott was treated for cancer at Iowa's Children's Hospital. Today, he gets to turn and wave at the kids at Children's Hospital. Here's what I'll tell you. I don't care who you root for, win, lose, draw, no matter how you frickin' lose the game. If you lose like this, I love when Kinnick Stadium turns and waves at the kids at Children's Hospital. That's something we can all agree on. I've had 2 different kids spend time in Children's Hospital for various reasons over the years. All right, back to the game. Iowa's next drive, their first down of the game, they end up punting. All right, the team that leads the Big Ten in rushing, which is Iowa. In fact, they had 8 straight games this year where they had rushed for over 200 yards. So far, they have a total of 12 yards rushing up to this point in the game, 1.9 yards per carry, and quarterback Jackson Stratton is 2 of 7 passing so far. They're also 0 of 5 on 3rd downs. I don't think they converted a 3rd down all night. I think they were 0 of 10. I'll have to go back and double check that. All right, think about that. 0 of 10, if that is correct. I know they were 0 of 9. I think they ended up 0 and 10. How do you score any points, let alone 13? Oh, we'll get to that. All right, we look to be a step ahead of them so far. Emmett Johnson playing well again. But I started to write things like this down, but this is the type of game Iowa loves to play. That's the only thing that makes me nervous. They don't mind not doing well on offense. They don't mind letting you dink and dunk. They don't mind giving up a field goal here or there. This is the type of game Iowa plays, and that's what made me nervous, and that's what I wrote right here, all right? When it looked like we were a step ahead. I've seen this before, though. All right, the Huskers' next drive, more pressure on Raiola, had a 4th down. Rule wanted to go for it. I wrote, I love it, but alas, a false start forces us to punt instead. All right, Iowa's next drive, another punt. James Williams, all right, he had a sack on 3rd down with only a 3-man rush. I noted only a 3-man rush, obviously hard to do. The Black Shirts' first sack of the game. If you're going to wear that number 90, I did make this little note. He wears number 90, I wear number 90. He's done great this year. But you might want to work on that celebration dance just a little bit. I'm joking, of course. All right. Just throw the bones. It's the easiest thing to do. All right, Nebraska, I noted at this point, has 108 total yards so far. Iowa only has 20, which, by the way, is what they had at halftime. All right, Huskers ball, we're outplaying them, but we're only up 3-0. We need some more points. Again, I just made little notes like this throughout the entire game. All right, let's go, Nebraska, is what I wrote. I actually just posted a drive chart for both teams so far, and that was that first 10 possessions. All right, 5 for each team, Iowa and Nebraska, where a field goal was the only thing that happened, and there was 9 punts and a whole lot of 3-and-outs along the way. I wrote, LOL, you gotta love Big Ten football. All right, now we need a score. As if on cue, it was like literally the next drive. Nebraska marches 60 yards, taking time off the clock, including a 23-yard pass to Ja'Cory Barney. All right, that culminated with a Ty Robinson monster formation. That's what I call it when they bring in all the big boys and Ty comes in at fullback. The Ty Robinson monster formation, that's what I've decided to call it. A 1-yard touchdown run by Dante Dowdell. Good guys, 10. The other guys, 0. That's Dante Dowdell's 12th rushing touchdown of the season, the most by a Husker since Divino Zigbo in 2018. By the way, the Ty Robinson monster formation is my new favorite formation in football. All right. That formation is the perfect example of everybody knows what's coming, but when you have an identity, you know who you are, you know what your role is, you know what your job is, and you just get really good at something. Okay, that's the key to being good. I love it. All right, interesting halftime stats. I mean, my goodness. Iowa's longest play so far in the game was the offsides penalty that we had. I think it was James Williams early in the first half. The completion to Ja'Cory Barney for 23 yards in the first half was more than Iowa's total yards in the first half. Here we go. First downs, Nebraska 10, Iowa 1. Third down efficiency, Nebraska 2 of 7, Iowa 0 of 6 to this point. Total yards, Nebraska 182, Iowa 20. Passing, Nebraska was 10 of 14, 6.9 yards per pass. The Hawkeyes were 2 of 7, 1.1 yards per pass. All right, rush yards, Nebraska 86, 3.7 yards per carry. The Hawkeyes 12 yards on 13 carries. That's 0.9 yards per rush. Nebraska time of possession advantage 1908 to 1052. I wrote the Black Shirts are dominating so far, and the offense is being efficient. That's all we need. Can we adjust to Iowa's halftime adjustments and do this for 4 full quarters? By the way, Nebraska's offense played 6 good quarters of football in a row. This was at halftime I wrote these notes. I didn't know what was going to happen yet in the second half. I wrote, played 6 good quarters of football in a row, including the Wisconsin game, the first time we've been able to say that all year. And I noted Iowa only ran 20 plays. They were averaging 1 yard per play to that point so far. This is the least amount of first half yards Nebraska had allowed, the Black Shirts had allowed since the Michigan State game of 2021, 3 years ago. Now, it should be noted that Cade McNamara, the announcers were like, are they going to put somebody else in a quarterback? I think they actually asked Kirk Ferentz. But what was interesting is Cade McNamara was not announced on senior night with the other seniors before the game, and it didn't appear to me, I don't believe he was suited up for the game either. It wasn't even an option to bring another quarterback in. All right, Ja'Cory, all right, I already read that. All right, Huskers opening drive of the second half, 5:30 off the clock, drive to the Hawkeyes 17-yard line. Our 2 turnovers. And yeah, the Iowa guy touched the ball. On the muffed punt. Okay, that wasn't a muffed punt. They touched the ball, the fumble later in the game, and the missed field goal. And then the 72-yard touchdown that Caleb Johnson had where we had 4 missed tackles. That was it. That was it. That was the game for Iowa. We dominated the rest. I don't want to say dominated, but we outplayed them the rest of the game. All right. We drive down to the Hawkeyes 17-yard line, 34-yard field goal. Bad snap, rough hold. Obviously, the bad snap on the ground made the hold much tougher. The kick was ugly, pulled away to the left. All right, so again, the snap, hold, kick operation was a little bit of a struggle on that particular play. Cost us 3 points. Overall drive looked good and included a 25-yard completion to Thomas Fedoni, a 25-yard corner route, a great way to beat cover 2. Our corner routes, Huskers still lead 10-0. Nebraska's completed a couple of corner routes in the game to this point so far. Iowa's next drive, Caleb Johnson finally breaks out, 25-yard run. The Hawkeyes end up punting. Anyways, that one run was more than Iowa's entire offense in the first half. Doesn't matter, they scored more points. Appears Isaiah Garcia Castaneda muffs the punt. Then I saw the replay. So basically, he doesn't touch the punt. Okay. And Vincent Shavers, thinking it's a fumble, comes in to try to recover it. But the Iowa guy touched the ball first. You could see it plain as day. It was ruled a fumble Iowa recovery. So basically, they said the call stands. So basically, they didn't see enough to overturn it. The Iowa guy touched the ball. I don't care what color this shirt is. Okay, I can see that his hand touched the ball first. They review the call stands. Iowa's ball at Nebraska's 4-yard line. The black shirts gobble up Caleb Johnson a couple of times, and Iowa's offense, they gobble them up all 3 downs. The Hawkeyes kick a field goal, score Nebraska 10, Hawkeyes 3. Nebraska, another decent drive, including an 18-yard throw to Nate Borkashire. The Huskers punt around midfield. The Hawkeyes start with the ball at their own 14-yard line. And man, this next sentence came back to bite me. We're clearly outplaying them. All right? But what makes me nervous is we're only up by 1 score, and one crazy play can happen / change this game at any point in time. I'm not making this up. Like, that is at the bottom of the page. That is what I wrote. Literally, the very next freaking play. Again, this is my note. Literally, the very next freaking play. Jackson Stratton hits Caleb Johnson, who breaks 4 tackles on his way to a 72-yard touchdown. Game is now tied 10-10. Literally, the missed field goal, the 2 turnovers, and 1 play that Iowa had on offense the entire day. What is there, about 140 plays in a football game? The other 136, we probably outplayed them 95% of the time. Doesn't matter. Hawkeyes got more yards. On that one, I don't even want to read that. All right, the Huskers' next drive, Dylan Raiola runs for a first down. Again, Dylan's running hard when he runs with the ball. 4 plays later, Nebraska punts Iowa's ball. All right, a couple of plays later, Hawkeyes punt again. All right, I said we have outplayed Iowa, but a couple of freaking plays. Anyways, I digress. Oh, I didn't want to say anything, but Colt McCoy is not great at calling games. I thought he was awful calling our Colorado game earlier this year. He wasn't awful today, but he's just not great. Sorry, Colt. All right, our next drive, a decent drive. I love what Dana Holgerson has come up with short yardage packages and plays that he likes to run in short yardage situations and goal line situations as well. I made that little note. We had a short yardage situation, and I love the play call that he had, just like some of the goal line situations, the Ty Robinson monster formation, as I've dubbed it. All right, in this drive, I forgot about this. Isaiah Narrow was wide open with room to run around Iowa's 30-yard line. I completely forgot about this. The ball went right through his hands. He's going to catch it at the 30 with room to run. He might have ran into the end zone, but the ball went right through his hands. I understand it happens. Okay. We punt Iowa's ball at their 9-yard line with 3:29 left in the game. Can we force a 3 and out, use all 3 of our timeouts, plus we got the 2-minute timeout, get the ball back with a short field, a possible game-winning field goal? Let's see what happens. That's what I wrote. You're taking the journey with me if you haven't watched a gut reaction before. I write this all out as the game's going along. I obviously don't know how it ends at this point. I know how it ends now. All right, 2 plays later, Iowa completes a pass, their 5th third down of the entire game. All right, well, the last 7 games between Iowa and Nebraska, oh boy, have been decided by 7 points or less. Now it's 8. Last 8 games have been decided by 7 points or less, and 3 of those, now 4 of those games after today, have been decided by 3 points or less 4 times with an Iowa walk-off field goal, if you include today's game. The Black Shirts force Iowa to punt. Husker ball, 1:42 left at our 20-yard line. Let's go, baby. Need about 60 yards to get in reasonable field goal range. The Huskers get a first down or 2, and then Raiola's sacked. They weren't even blitzing. Iowa didn't blitz a ton tonight. Fumble recovery by Max Llewellyn of Iowa, their best pass rusher. Hawkeyes ball on Nebraska's 36-yard line, 20 seconds to go on the clock. A few plays later, Drew Stevens makes a 53-yard field goal. He was 5 of 5 last week versus Maryland. Nobody thought he was going to miss this. To beat Nebraska, same score as last year, 13-10. We outplayed them. And again, probably had twice as many plays, twice as many total yards. I'll double check that later when I put out my Sunday show. But here's the deal. Iowa won the turnover battle, +2. So now Nebraska's -1 on the season. We were +1 coming in. All right, they won the penalty battle. They only had 1 penalty the entire game. Their defense is sound, well coached. They rallied to the football incredibly well. We outplayed Iowa, but they weren't going to beat themselves. I wrote, they just waited for us to beat ourselves. Basically, it was about 4 plays. The fumbles, the missed field goal, the 72-yarder for the touchdown. I'm not going to include the drop pass. That happens, unfortunately, sometimes. And that was it. As always, you can check out CarrikerChronicles.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there are now 25 phenomenal podcasts on there. We have 10 really good writers. All right, highlight tapes. We're going to be covering basketball, volleyball, signing day on Wednesday, transfer portal, coaching moves, whatever that entails. It's where all your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true. Here's my 3 questions for you fine folks at home. Let me know your answers in the comments below. Number 1, are you in disbelief that we lost this game? I'm in disbelief that I'm not in disbelief, because if you followed my notes throughout the game, I was concerned the entire game, even when it was 10-0 and we looked like we were a full step ahead of them. Number 2, what's the most frustrating part about this loss to you? Number 3, try to take a step back. When you answer this, do you still consider this regular season a success? I got all sorts of final thoughts. The bottom line, you just got to find a way to win instead of letting them wait to beat ourselves. All right, go Big Red, and always remember to throw the bones. This show is brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. You can check them out at dpsconstruction.net. They are your local concrete experts. All things concrete, all things retaining wall, and the like. If you need this work done, go to dpsconstruction.net. If this is your line of work, go to dpsconstruction.net. Also, bonzelpool.com. They have great hot tubs, pools, and saunas. If you need them, they've got them. Check them out at bonzelpool.com. Also, if you have the aforementioned hot tub, pool, and sauna, you need them taken care of, go to bonzelpool.com.